Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years. Pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week I have a podcast interview with yoga teacher and yoga therapist Justin Deangelo, talking about how yoga teachers and yoga therapists can practically use tech and AI in their businesses. Unsurprisingly, our conversation also wanders into how we keep the human element in our work. So this could be thinking about how we as yoga professionals essentially leverage our humanity for our jobs every day. Let me tell you what I mean. Oftentimes, when we are learning about yoga, especially the lifestyle or philosophical aspects of the practice, we then turn around as yoga teachers and teach these concepts or ideas to other people by leveraging our own experiences in our work. While we're well known as an industry for trauma dumping in front of a room of students, as a joke, I truly hope, I do think that our tendency to use our own experiences in life to teach about yoga does make us, well, distinctly human. And while we continue to confront our own humanity on a daily or weekly basis through our own yoga practice, we also need to talk about what it is to be human as a teacher. Did you see that article from NPR that came out talking about AI teaching chair yoga to a group of seniors in Colorado? I'll link it under the resources if you're curious to read the whole thing, but the story is exactly what you think. And for those of you who thought AI will never take our jobs, when I asked originally when I was researching the series several months ago, I hate to say it, friends, it's already here. So let's plan accordingly. And before I forget, I have a couple humble requests for you. First, as usual, will you go ahead and like, subscribe, or follow the podcast from wherever you're listening? Secondly, and this is a fun one, so stick with me. Will you tell me a funny story? I'm collecting some of our funniest stories from teaching yoga to share with you all on the podcast. So far, you'd be surprised how many of the stories that have been shared with me involve underwear or orgasms, and it's official. We have a weird job. So head to the show notes, find the SpeakPipe link, and please tell me your funniest, weirdest, quirkiest yoga teaching story. And finally, did you know that this series has a discussion guide that you can snag? So go to the show notes or www.workinginyoga.com/discussion guide. This week's talk is with Justin Deangelo, someone who is embracing AI and tech and what it can do for us. So take a listen and find out more about some ideas on how you can practically and ethically use AI and tech in yoga while keeping the human element. Friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. Okay, this week on the podcast, this is another in my series talking about AI and tech in the yoga space. And I have my friend Justin Deangelo on the podcast. Justin, will you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Hey everybody, I'm Justin. I'm a yoga teacher and yoga therapist in the Minneapolis area. I specialize working with anxiety and depression. And lately I've been kind of pivoting towards more family-oriented yoga and yoga therapy, working with neurodivergence, teens, stuff like that.
So let's talk tech. How do you use tech as a yoga teacher? Let's do two buckets, right? The yoga teacher bucket, right? So many of us work in like more than one frontier in the yoga space. The yoga teacher bucket and the yoga therapy bucket. Like, how are you using AI and tech? Do you hate it? Do you love it? How is it an advantage or disadvantage for you?
I use it primarily as a productivity tool. So, um, you know, I work full time outside of yoga, and then my yoga business is a part time endeavor for me. I was divorced a few years ago and have 4 kids now for income's sake. That's just the way I've been going. But um, as a with time being so limited as a yoga teacher, anything I can do to save time, right, I'm all about it, but not at the expense of quality. And that's where kind of the nuance comes in with working with AI, right? But primarily, like right now, what I lean on AI the most for is I'm teaching some family yoga classes, and a lot of times that's geared towards a younger population, 5 year olds plus or minus. And so stuff gets themed. We theme around the jungle, we theme around all sorts of different stuff. And I, AI, as I understand it, and let me be clear that I am no AI expert, right? But um, it, it's it's gonna it's like throwing a dart and expecting to hit the dartboard, right? We're not going to get a bullseye every time. That's not the expectation. It's just kind of setting that framework for me to develop this sequence for these kids to make sure that they get everything they need out of it. So what does that look like? um I might say, hey, I want to go to the zoo, I want to visit a couple poses, and then I let it kind of do its thing. From there, there's quite a bit of tweaking that goes on, and sometimes I use the AI to do that. Sometimes I just take it away from the AI and do it myself. It becomes a point of I hate to lean on the adage, if you want something right, do it yourself, right? You just go and you make the changes you need, and you get where you need to be. So
Oh, okay. Because I feel like you and I sometimes use the AI similarly, because I do that too. So in my brain, I've bucketed it into the idea of it being like a springboard prompt, right? Like, so the AI can give you the springboard that you're jumping off of to like create something deeper and more meaningful. But like sometimes it just helps your brain get in there. Do you have a similar experience to that?
yeah, not to say that I'm not a creative person, right? But art, stuff like that doesn't always come naturally to me, right? So it's just kind of like a kickstart, a jump start, so to speak. Like,
Yeah.
hey, here's some framework, and sometimes that framework is awful, right? Sometimes I take 3 sentences out of the 100 that they wrote and just scrap the rest. But more often than not, it gets those creative juices flowing.
Okay, so to shift us back into this idea, okay, so AI can be a springboard. And you said something earlier that I want to kind of like pull in on a little bit when you said if you want something right, do it yourself. I think there's like a tension that I think we have to navigate when we're using tech or AI, and that is the tension between the fact that we can use it for efficiency's sake. I can be more productive, it can help inspire me creatively, but there's something to the artistry and the creativity and the nuance that we as human beings bring to the equation when using AI and tech. And so, like, I feel like in the yoga space, there's a little bit of that. Like, AI can crack out a yoga class, like, hey, write me a 60-minute yoga class. Here's my theme. It'll go, like dinosaurs and dragons for my theme for a 60-minute kids yoga class. But like you have to facilitate that, right? And there's something to the humanity of that we have to like push into a little bit. Do you like how do you navigate that? Or I mean, I'm assuming you're not reading the AI script because none of us are.
No, that's exactly, to prove your point. That's exactly where the humanist aspect of it comes into it, for lack of a better word. It's like when I write those scripts and we're going to the jungle. It's like the sentence is like, yippee, we are going to have a lot of fun. It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
you got to put your own language to it. And I've trained my AI to speak my language, to talk like me, to whatever extent it can do that. Um,
yeah.
but that said, it's not fluid. It's not real life. It's not how I'm gonna approach a class. And you can't do everything yoga teaching or anything, your podcast, you don't come onto this podcast with a set script. If you might have 5 questions that you want to ask, but then you might ask that first question and find out there's a whole rabbit hole of 3 to 4 other questions that you need to go down to fully expound that point. So that's where that you just kind of got to take it and run with it and take it as framework.
What started my journey into figuring out how we work and how we're going to work in the next 10 years with tech and AI is that, and you'll relate to this because you also have kids. My daughter got a Furby for Christmas. Do you know what those are? Those like they had them. I don't know how old you are. I'm 46. They
They're
had them
coming
when we
back.
were young. Yeah, yeah. So they're coming back again. But this Furby you can talk to. And I'll hear her. So she's 11. She'll sometimes chat with the little Furby and she can give it a verbal cue and it will do a thing. So she has given the Furby the cue that she read in a little manual that said, "Hey, Furby, chill time." And Furby will guide her through guided meditation with positive affirmations and light stretching. And so I was listening with her one day to this Furby, and I was like, Furby's good enough, I would hire it. So that then got me down this rabbit hole of what about us cannot be delivered by Furby. Like, what elements do you think we'll start with yoga teachers, like what elements do you think we as yoga teachers can't be replaced by AI? And what, because honestly, a good sequence and an easy, like soft, gentle guided meditation, that Furby does as good a job as any person I would hire.
Interesting. What if I'm curious, and I've played around with this a little bit, but just to get some idea of your experience, have you ever tried to like anatomically sequence a yoga class? Like say how I want to get to, I don't know, bird of paradise. Can you do some preparation?
No.
See, I don't think that will work. My I haven't
Okay.
done it in a long time, but I think it fails in that regard. Now, will it
Okay.
always fail in that regard? I don't think so. Eventually I think it'll get better and
Yeah.
um I think so that's one aspect of it is it has its limitations. And then to answer the second part of the question you haven't asked yet, where it crosses over to yoga therapy is kind of the individualism of it, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, Furby can deliver that meditation, and that meditation might land in a yoga class on 18 out of 20 students. But those
Yeah.
2 out of 20, those are the two who it doesn't resonate with, who maybe it triggers a trauma of some sort. And that's where then kind of the therapeutic side of yoga, how can we individualize this? How can we make this Rebecca's meditation, not the
Yeah.
class's meditation? And that is obviously very human, a very human process of discovering that and then delivering that.
Yeah, so, like, it's our ability to read the room and respond to people individually is, you're right, something AI will never take from us. Like, I mean, and it's interesting that you say that because I actually think we as an industry are some of the best people to do that. Like a lot of us came with trauma and that skill set already to begin with. We ended up here for those reasons. And we found a job that kind of pays us to have that skill set already, which I find a very interesting sort of phenomenon within our industry. But yeah, the ability to like clock a room and respond to it, I do think is something AI will never be able to replace. Like, so then what if, so let me give you a second scenario in this. In my town, in case you don't know this, I just use my podcast for therapy. So thank you.
That's what we're here for.
Like, like in my town, there's like in most towns, there's a like locals love us sort of offshoot of like the most popular things in that particular town. And we ranked this year for yoga studios, my studio did. But the number 2 spot was Hotworks, which has no yoga teachers. It's only videos in like a infrared sauna. And I was like, oh, okay, we need to talk about this too. The idea that there is a potential that AI could be building YouTube channels with a fake person and a fake voice and a fake sequence that somebody could pop up on a screen in a yoga space and they'd be like, well, I took a yoga class. Like, How do we feel about that?
Um, Obviously I don't feel great about that. Um,
Same.
it doesn't threaten me in what I do for a living. And because it, one thing I learned in COVID is when all the yoga studios were shut down, right? There's um the yoga student who wants to be there, who wants the community, and there's the one who wants to just follow along at home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by and large, my experience has been that those are two different people. Either you're in there or you're not. So um, really, I think that with all the free yoga on YouTube and stuff, I think that's already been kind of delineated. The people are in studios that want to be in studios, and at home that want to be at home. So no, that doesn't it yeah, it's frustrating. Like we want to serve as many people as we can serve, right? But um no, people are gonna do what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah. So let's jump into the yoga therapy bucket, right? So yoga therapy is typically for most of us a more one-on-one service oriented experience, right? So we're definitely responding to the people in the room. Do you think AI has a place in yoga therapy?
A very small one, because then it gets to be a slippery slope with I think accuracy would be my biggest fear
Yeah, yeah,
overall with using it a lot for yoga therapy. So if I'm working with someone that has a condition that I'm not familiar with, and I need to know a little bit about it, AI will be my first stop and say, oh, okay, these are symptoms that are similar to this, and then from there, then it has to come off. In my opinion, it has to come off the AI, and it has to get into actual research with
yeah,
cited work and a great to illustrate my point, a great example would be ask your AI to solve some sort of complex math problem and then ask it again, are you sure? And odds are, I haven't done this in a while, but odds are you're going to get two different answers. It's going to be like, oh, just
hmm,
kidding. Actually, the answer is this. So it's like, I don't trust you to be scouring the
huh,
internet, to be looking for non-biased things, and
yeah.
I would rather um, sort out the bias on my own, I guess.
I do have sometimes when I'm asking AI things, I will tell it to cite its sources. And then those sources typically end up being like a jumping off point for me of like, okay, so who wrote the sources? Who were their teachers? Who are their teachers' teachers? Like working backwards from there. But I mean, I do think in the yoga therapy space, you're right. Like that first stop being AI, like it can research faster than we can. And that's an advantage. I mean, like if I can get the data faster, that's better for generally for what I'm outputting. So, yeah.
Absolutely. We're tasked with so much in today's world as it is, anything to save time. And yes, I've done that too with the sources. It's I've had it list the
Yeah.
sources, and then I go hunt them down, and I
Yeah.
um dig them up and form my own opinion.
So, I've been also chatting with this conversation of how AI changes the medical community, which is something that people who have one foot in yoga and one foot in the medical community have talked about. Like, oh, we're not having this conversation enough, but in 5 years, my general practice could be replaced by AI. Like, you could list your symptoms, you could upload a video, and AI could come with a basic prescriptive something like do this, this, and this, and go from there. Do you ever foresee that being the case for yoga therapy too? Like,
Before I answer that question, can I ask if that would mean universal health care for all? Right.
let's work on that. Okay.
Um, here's here's what I could see happening. And this stuff is probably out there. I've messed around with at a prior company I worked with. I messed around with some VR, but I could see, um, the alignment part of yoga getting kind of, I don't know what the word is, taken over by instrument, tracking instruments and all that kind of stuff. I could see that happening. I think again, there's the potential for like just anatomy thing, people that have longer bones, like stuff that's gonna they're gonna be outliers from that. That's going to work on a segment of the population, and there's always going to be outliers to something like that. So I also think it's going to be very in the short term. I'm sure that's extremely expensive right now, and probably will always be expensive to some extent. But yeah, that's I think the. Do I think it will completely take over yoga? No, no. I think there's too much humanity. There's too much one-on-one. There's too much community connection needed for yoga to be yoga.
Did mention though something that I completely agree with, like it taking over those who are obsessed with like the alignment portion of yoga. Like, yeah, AI can do that. I also think how we train. Like if I said to somebody, "Hey, so if the thing you're talking to me about can't be alignment, anatomy, or sequencing, what else are you bringing to the table?" Because those are like big buckets that we've trained in for so heavily for so long. Like, I'm interested how it will push us to be offering something that's more humanity driven because that's the only way we'll be able to compete. Like, you can't compete with sitting with somebody and saying, "Hey, how's your heart feel today?" Because a chatbot could ask you that, but it's a computer. It doesn't really freaking care. Like,
Right. So I wonder if like I generally speaking, if clients come to me, they've already got some sort of asana practice.
mhm.
So if we delineate it as asana and the rest of yoga, sure, I could see AI
Yeah.
taking over asana pretty easily. Um, the rest of yoga, the ultimate goal of yoga, liberation, silencing the fluctuations of the mind. I don't see AI taking that away from us anytime soon.
So, is it possible that AI's push into our space could actually push us closer to why we were originally in the first place?
We have to evolve, right? We have to learn and grow
Yeah.
and evolve. That's part of our yoga practice, and that's just part of life. So yes, I think it could push us in the right direction into offering personalized one-on-one services and really getting to know a person, mind and body, and getting them healthy, getting them happy.
And
Get
even shifting back into the group class space, like offering more in your group class than just a hell of a like sweaty sequence. Because again, AI can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, do you think we're ready for that
We as teachers as a whole, probably
as a
not.
collective? Yeah.
Probably not. Probably some more than others. I think, based on conversations you've started, I think it's, I don't know if I'd say 50-50, but there's definitely both sides of the camp for
Yeah.
whether AI has a place or not. Um,
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I think it's naive for us to believe that it won't affect us because I actually think it will significantly affect us, especially if I slip into the studio space, right? So, studios, I think, will probably be the first frontier of people that will have to be considering and adjusting based on what AI and tech is bringing to the table because there's absolutely the potential that you could feed, "Hey, ChatGPT, please go and study every video that Yoga with Adriene has ever done and build a YouTube channel that's better than hers." And it'll be like, okay, like it's gonna, some sort of like some semblance of a AI female who's gonna be there with a voice that's similar, who has a kind of quick wit, and has a off the cuff sort of style. Like I think the tech is here now that could happen already. And so studios will have to respond to that first and foremost. Do you see, you look like you have something to say, so I'm going to stop talking and you talk.
Sure, sure. Do you um do you see in your history of working in yoga, do you see that the robotic machine like quiet, not inviting yoga teachers are drawing the large classes, or is it the amicable, personable, um, concerned about your personal life, how are your kids, like, are those the ones drawing students in your experience?
Definitely the second. The people who are like more personable and amiable are absolutely drawing that. But as we shift down a generation, right? So now we're looking at millennials are shifting up. They're now, aging. I'm not gonna lie to you, Justin, like sometimes I look at the yoga industry and I think in 20 years, everyone's gonna look back and be like, that was a millennial thing. And I'm a little like concerned about it. I'm concerned about us in a way because there are a lot of people that make their livings in this space. And if we're not ready for that shift, if we're not ready to talk to a generation that came up with tech in the way that Gen Z and now Gen Alpha is coming up with tech, like one of the conversations I think you were referring to is when I originally asked this on my personal Facebook page, and I was like, "Yo, I want to talk about this. I want to hear from people because I was building this series, right?" And I said one of my biggest concerns is that there's a generation of kids now. So my oldest is 16, and while I never allowed my kids to have tech at a table at a restaurant, I absolutely had friends that did. And when they were 2 and 3 and 4 years old, they were learning to regulate off of tech and not off of their parents. And now those kids are 16, 17, 18, 19. And we're going to look at them and say, no, but you should be connecting with us and not with tech. And that's not this, that they weren't set up for that. We taught them from a very early age that tech was a regulator, tech was a nervous system regulator. And now we have to figure out how to address those humans as adults and sell them on human connection that we sort of took from them when they were little, because it's difficult to parent 2-year-olds in restaurants.
Very, very, very valid point. And there's a whole can of worms that you opened, right? But that comes down to
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
thing, right? Like part of why I'm so passionate about yoga is because I never had those skills growing up, as a
Yeah,
millennial. And my Nintendo was probably my best friend for a really long time as a kid.
yeah, yeah.
And that's not a healthy coping mechanism. That's not good emotional regulation. So, there's a part of me that gets frustrated because I don't work full time in yoga because I need an income. But the fact of that is my first dharma, my true calling, my purpose is raising these 4 kids as best I can and giving them those tools that I never had growing up. So, um, in a very roundabout way, maybe the answer to your question is we got to start banging down doors and getting into schools more heavily than I know we do that already, but maybe we need to do that more, and we need to get a presence in these schools and um, teach these kids these strategies and then the personal connection and how it's good to use your voice and um a whole myriad of skills that we could share with them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that how we shift how we're talking to people is going to have to change going forward with this new generation coming up and being like so integrated into tech. I also feel like there's going to be an expectation that we're taking advantage of tech to make their lives easier in a way that, because there is still like a faction of us within the yoga space that are like, just put your cash in this tissue box that's empty and I'll count it later. And like there's something so like, and I'm an Xer, right? So I'm a very young Gen Xer, and there's something so like underground that makes me very happy, like in that there's this holdout for that. But I think going forward, if we're going to continue to be relevant to a different generation than millennials, we have to have an expectation that we're going to work with tech when we can to make everybody's lives easier, even if it's uncomfortable.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Do you see in the yoga space a resistance to tech?
I think so to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Why I don't really know, but
Take a stab at it. Why?
um I think we're probably more, generally speaking, of course, we're more people than we are tech people. I
Yeah,
there was a time where I was an early adopter and I was the first one on the newest stuff, and that stuff's just not important to me anymore. What's more
yeah,
important to me is having these conversations, is talking about what we're passionate about, rather than making sure my TV has the ultimate number of pixels that I can't distinguish from one to the other in the store. It's just,
yeah, yeah.
it's not a high priority for me.
Do you feel like some of the philosophical background that we adopt as yoga practitioners, people interpret as being at odds with forward thinking and tech and AI, like the human centered nature of yoga, because it is so very human centered, right? Like connection with ourselves, connection with the greater world. Um, do you feel like we sometimes hold on to that so much that we push away the idea of adopting tech?
It could be for some people. For me personally, I don't think so. It all depends on what your views are. So if you hold my views, where AI is just a productivity tool, it's not the be all end all. Um, I think that still can align with, or become a modern interpretation of classic yoga philosophy, right? Whereas I could see how, if you were all in, this is my brain now, this AI is my brain ceases to exist. I just use my fingers, I put
Yeah,
a couple words in
yeah.
and I walk away, done. Then I think, yeah, you're moving away from your true self, and you're now letting this machine be you. You're letting the machine talk for you, I guess.
So I have two final questions for us. The first is, what are your favorite tech and apps? Like, what are you using in your regular life? The second one, and I'm forecasting this ahead to give your brain enough time to think about the second one. How do you think we are going to change how we work in the next 10 years based on tech being a bigger part of how we work? So, first, your favorite apps and tech. And second, how we're going to be working in 10 years. And is it the same or different based on tech?
Man, you're gonna expose me with my favorite apps, as I'm saying that I try to steer away from. I don't adopt a lot of. I use Chat GPT. I use a paid version
Okay.
of Chat GPT.
Okay.
Um, and other than telecommunication type stuff, I don't really mess with basic stuff like calendar apps, things like that. Um, I mean, I have a booking site that does all my
Yeah.
booking for me, and integrates with payment and whatnot. But um, did I answer that first question, or did I?
Yeah,
No.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question was,
Second question. The second question is how you see us working 10 years from now, and how has tech and AI affected how we work in a decade?
um, I could see, to your point, I could see a little bit of a fight versus AI instructors versus human instructors. I could see that happening. I could see, alignment feedback, like biofeedback, I guess you'd kind of call that. Um, with some sort of instruments, VR or whatever we want to call it. I could
Yeah.
see some of that happening. Um, this is kind of a separate conversation that I know you've been spearheading, kind of leading, but on the yoga therapy side, it comes down to just educating people as to what we do, how we can help.
Yeah.
And I think that is the human angle, right? And I think that's the angle that we've almost collectively decided we need to pursue. We need more education. We need more people to know what we can do, how yoga can help them, and where can we go from there. So.
Yeah. If I can get him, I'm going to try and get Neil Pearson on this series. And Neil actually, I think it was 2022, I was at SITAR, the International Association of Yoga Therapists gathering that they do once a year. And Neil had VR tech that they were using in their pain technology, like to retrain people's brains. And I was like, and you could see like that faction of humans in the yoga therapy space that were just like, oh my gosh, this is not for us. Transmission happens person to person kind of thing.
Sure.
But I will tell you what, I was all in. I was like, Neil, tell me how this works. And I got to be on the glasses. He took me through the whole thing and it was cool. And I absolutely could see where it was a benefit to use that tech to help retrain people's brains and how they perceive pain. Now, I don't think it would be useful without the human operating it, explaining what the hell was going on, right? Like you needed to still have somebody there to be like, hey, you're good. It's okay. You're not in a matrix right now. Like, this is what we're trying to do. But I mean, I do think that there is some use for us or for that stuff for us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the interesting question for Neil would be whether he's willing to share it or not would be, what was that investment like? Not only in terms of,
Yeah.
physical dollars, but time dollars. And obviously those costs would come down over time, like all tech does, right? But that's something to consider. Is this a whole nother conversation? I think yoga should be accessible to all. I don't think it should be a $80 a month studio admission price to practice yoga. So if you're talking, even a grand to get this equipment, um, and pain management is different. I'm speaking in terms that you get this equipment to analyze your yoga alignment. Um, I just That's great if you can afford it. I'd rather offer stuff on a sliding scale and have it be
Yeah.
accessible and have it be, available to all communities, not just the wealthy.
Do you feel like tech could ever make us more financially accessible? I'm so glad you brought this up.
Hmm. Sure. I think it could. Well,
Can we
yeah.
reach more
It,
people and defer the cost?
say that once more.
Can we reach more people using tech and defer the cost so it's not so much?
Yeah, and then I think it lends credit to your argument that it at that point can it start replacing us, and then I have to bring up my point of it's going to be not a human experience again. It's still
Yeah.
now we're in a circle, but yeah, it is possible, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited to see what humans are going to build. I'm excited for us. I think yoga, we have so many like smart, innovative humans that are very heart-centered in our space. Like I will be so curious to see how we meet the challenge that tech brings us in the next 10 years as, you know, I mean, I think the relevancy of sequencing and taking up space on the mat and like you said, alignment is a really good one of like that becomes less relevant. What becomes more relevant is that can you be in community with people? Can you have conversations with people? Can you give people something that they come back because they want to be around you, not just because you've told them that your arm goes here and here. I know y'all are listening, but my arm's up in the air and out to the side, and like, like how we shift for that. Like, I'm interested to see what we build.
Yeah, very well said. I agree with you.
Yeah. Justin, will you tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, my website is my initials, JD, Justin Deangelo, jdyoga.org. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at Justin Deangelo Yoga.
Great. Thank you so much for having this conversation, Justin.
Thank you as well. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Justin, for this chat. Here are our key takeaways. First, springboarding is one of the first ways I ever used AI for my own business. I really do find it useful to have someone or something else to bounce ideas off of, and asking AI for both creative prompts and time management solutions has been something that I really value. Next, this idea of the balance of artistry and practicality is one of the things that we also talked about with my interview with Jay Brown on this episode. Next, this idea of the balance of artistry and practicality is one of the things that I also talked about with Jay Brown on his episode for this series. There's a benefit to struggle. I really do agree with Jay here. And from that struggle, we create beautiful artistic things. However, practically speaking, we can use AI for ideas of things that aren't necessarily needed to struggle in order to achieve. Did someone ask you to do a yoga class for kids and you just frankly need ideas for crafts? AI can be a great place to get inspiration quickly and efficiently so you don't have to scroll through Pinterest for hours. Next, we have to add a human twist on AI content. Seriously, have you ever received an email from someone who is using AI to make the copy? It's often both weird and insulting because you can see it right away. Make sure that any content that you get from an AI source, be it ChatGPT, Gemini, or Grok, is also being vetted by your brain. Shift the language, make it seem less formal, and more, for lack of a better word, human. Next, individualizing our practice for people is one thing that AI is not competing with us on yet. I know optimists are very confident that AI won't ever be able to match our ability to create customized yoga therapy sequences or individualized anything for that matter. But I'm going to be honest with you, I am not one of those people. I think AI's ability to create a customized anything will happen sooner rather than later, my friends. But right now, AI can't do that, and we can. So lean into the idea that you can make something totally unique just for a particular student or client, be it a yoga therapy plan or a customized yoga class. Next, AI taking over alignment is something that I think will happen really quickly for us. All those alignment-based classes and workshops that we have sold to people will likely go away for a more AI-based approach. And thank goodness, honestly, because we were focusing on the wrong things anyway. And finally, if AI takes over the physicality and alignment portion of what is generalized yoga classes, this could be the move that gets people pushing us into a more yoga-y yoga, for lack of a better term. You know, the actual full practice. We need to lean into our personal experiences and the philosophy and lifestyle portions of the practice in order to bring more of our human selves to the equation. Next time on the podcast, I have Kimberly Searle on talking about all things yoga therapy, teacher training, and AI. You are going to love it, y'all. I am obsessed with her. Until then, my friends, let's get to work, and I'll catch you around the water cooler next time.